if you go on the internet and look around, you see there are hundreds and hundreds of programming languages that say they're now implementing AI and they can code for you. And I would like to know how live code is going to differentiate themselves from all these other languages that you could join.
Stephen, I know you had quite a lot of thoughts about this. Would you like to take that one?
I've got some. I know Kevin's got quite a bit as well, but I'll kick it off. So I think you're definitely right in the sense that all the no-code tools out there are and will be adopting AI to make their offerings better. And I think largely we will have a lot of the same feature. But I think the biggest way that Xavvi, that differentiates itself comes back to the whole live code versus JavaScript versus Python debate. I think sort of where other tools will be spitting out code in languages that are difficult for that technically savvy but non-programmer to understand, Xavvi will be kind of spitting out code which is clean live code scripts that the user can definitely understand. And I think that kind of remains our biggest differentiator. You put in a request in English and you get a response back in English. But I know Kevin's got quite a lot to add to that, so I'll pass over to Kevin.
Yeah, so I think if we sort of think about the history of live code, you had to learn the language to be able to do anything. And so that was a huge commitment in terms of the time and energy that you needed to put in before you could even be sure that learning that language had any value. If you're a professional coder and you studied something else, you're more likely just to use that. And if you're not a professional coder, you might have given it a go, but it was quite a tough sell. So in a way, up until sort of pre-AI days, the language was almost like a little bit of a barrier, and it was also something that made live code very sticky. So if you did get to the point where you got to that tipping point, then you wouldn't be able to imagine creating apps for something else. You get really productive. There's nothing really like it. But you take those two things together and you have a very low conversion rate for new customers because you have quite a barrier for the language, and then you have very high retention rates because people actually love it when they get there. So our no-code platform flips all of that on its head, and it kind of makes our language the big differentiator, I think. And so it kind of goes from being a barrier to being a core strength and a unique selling point. So if you think about it, other platforms that create code, imagine that they're AI and they're creating code for you. You won't be able to understand the code that's been produced unless you're a professional programmer. There's also an awful lot more code that has to get generated by these tools. So there's a lot more potential for mistakes. So if you're not a professional programmer and you get back 2 pages of code that's written in JavaScript, for example, and imagine that it's even as high as 80% accurate, which the AIs are not yet, then you're going to get stuck, very, very quickly indeed. And there's an awful lot more people out there who are not professional coders who want to create apps than there are coders because the demand for apps is very, very high. So live code inherently needs a lot less code. So instead of those 2 pages of code, in that hypothetical example, you might get back just a few sentences. And we're also using another layer between the code generation and the AI, which is our actions editor. And so there's an element there which allows us to make sure that the AI is coming back and generating code that is correct, because it's something that's originally been generated and vetted by us, essentially. And from there, you can learn from step by step. So the coding assistant we produce will be really good and able to edit scripts. So kind of positioning it as the no-code platform with AI, but without the limits. And the other big differentiator is that with a lot of the other platforms out there, if you get to a certain point and then you hit a wall, if it's a no-code platform that isn't outputting any code, then you may not be able to go past that wall. And there are a lot of ways that wall may come and affect your app. You might not be able to build a native app. You might not be able to do online-offline sync. You might not be able to incorporate a native library, write your own server component, create your own script widgets. There's a long list of things that a lot of the other no-code platforms out there just don't do or don't support. And probably you can do all of those things. It's just and with the AI, it becomes a much more gradual step of learning. So you get supported all the way through. So we're really pushing, the angle. The marketing is really going to be talking about the risk when you're choosing a no-code platform of adopting a platform where it might not do something that you need it to do in future. And this is something that we see with a lot of other no-code platforms. People build their app, they get so far down the line, and then they hit some sort of inherent limit. But if you look at the technology stack in Xavvi and LiveCode, which obviously interoperate with it, everything from the new script widgets and the customization capabilities through to that ability to go and compile right down to machine code, you have a very, very flexible platform. So it's AI, it's no code, but it's without the limits. And it takes the language, which has been the weakness in conversion, but the strength in all other areas, and actually makes it a massive selling point in a way that it never has been before.